Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sustainability Chats with Friends. I'm so excited to be joined today by Christine Taylor. We got chatting. We haven't really chatted that many times, but all of the times that we have, I've just wanted to talk to you for hours and hours and research more things. And I'm always so interested in what you have to share and what you're working on. And I think there are some similarities because we both went to art and design schools and then worked in fashion for a
Mhm.
time and then tried
Yeah,
to integrate sustainability into our work and then ended up retraining in sustainability more formally. And now we're trying to consult in the more creative, sustainable space. And so I would love it if you could please just introduce yourself and share a bit more about you and your background, and then we'll hop in.
sure. Hi, I'm Christine Taylor, and I live in Portland, Oregon. And I have a long background in fashion, like you, starting from that side of creativity and storytelling. And growing up, I think, like a lot of people, I was a young girl who was really obsessed with fashion because of what I saw in magazines. And I would get my hair done and then see all the magazines. And one really stood out to me, which some people might remember, called W. And it
Oh,
was a newspaper then. And
amazing.
that, yeah, it was. And but it was big, it was using newsprint as a statement. And I still love that as a medium, to be totally honest. And so that kind of started that journey, and it took me to journalism, and that was fashion journalism. And I became a photographer and an editorial photographer, and had a career working at brands for quite some time. And I was at Nike, and when I was at Nike, I kind of hit my what I call the sustainability aha moment. And I think most people understand what that means. And I had that moment. And so I signed up to get my Master of Science in Sustainability, Social Impact, specific to fashion at IENYC. And I graduated 6 months ago, and I was working in until through that whole time as well, going to school. So I just did, I think you hit this wall sometimes, people in sustainability, where you go, oh, wow, I'm such a big part of the problem, right? I mean, we all are.
Mm,
And I thought, I can't keep being a part of the problem without
right.
trying to find solutions.
Yeah.
And if you can see it, you can't unsee it. And I could not unsee it anymore. And I had grown past the design lens
Mm,
and into operations and understanding systems
okay.
and being able to identify, like, okay, if we go this far back and intervene maybe at this point in this whole, what I'll call, use project management, work back, then we could probably make some real change in the path that we're going on with climate change and fashion's impact on climate.
That is amazing. I first of all, congratulations on graduating as well. It's such a good
Thank you.
achievement. And then I want to ask you more about those two kind of lever points and like points of change, like your sustainability aha moment, and then your realizing that you could backtrack to one specific moment, or maybe it's a few specific moments, and then make more change happen. Could
Yeah.
could you please elaborate on either or both of those?
Well, I guess that's what I work on every day. Every day. So now I've just completely nerded out on looking at systems, mapping systems, identifying where there's overlaps, where we can put in new processes, what those new processes are. And really I think it's just this kind of obsession and blind belief
Mm.
that we can do this.
Yeah. I think you need to
We
have
can
it though.
get
I really do.
Yeah, I think you do too. And believe me, I'm not like optimistic all the time. I'm probably up and down and up and down and up and down every day with what's happening in the world,
Oh,
with with our field, with the new government in the United States in our field. So I'm not trying to suggest, like, yeah, just be positive and you can find the point and move forward. I don't think that, but I do think that the way forward is going to be strategic
mm,
and needs to be strategic. And I just have had and still have so many questions. that go unanswered by the experts and by all of these people out there who we're listening to, who are wonderful, and they're teaching me along with everyone. But at the same time, I don't hear some of the questions being asked that I have.
Oh,
And I guess, yeah. And so I guess like the work back is kind of I'm loosely using that as a way to describe my process and how I ask questions of something around something. Like, for instance, today I got this is, as I'm a brand strategist right now. And so that can be translated into all kinds of things, which we can go into later in the conversation. But today I started getting really curious about SaaS platforms. And, I've been asked to review a couple by a couple of clients. And through that, I started conducting comparative analysis, which I'm obsessed with, because we're in this kind of boom or bust time in
right.
sustainability. And we have so many new tools, which we call, for those who maybe are new to the terminology, but a tech platform is also called a tool for instance, at a brand. And so all these new tools have emerged and they all sound wonderful, right? And it is a little challenging. I'm not a tech expert, so I ask, how do I figure out, like, what am I looking for and what's my criteria for using a tool, which of course always depends on what your goal is for your brand. And so I would work back from that goal and imagine all the steps that, but going backwards, that take me like at that goal, how I get there. So I don't know if that explains it enough, but
Totally does.
not going too granular.
Yeah.
But I learned how to do that as a creative, right, in production, because I made films and I made photography and I had sets and I had lots of people on set and all kinds of people running around doing things for me. And our goal was, of course, the creative brief and to meet that kind of expectation. Then when I did land at Nike, which I was only there about 3.5, 4 years, but it definitely took all of this production experience that I had and storytelling experience, and it refined it because it was so big and so professional and such a tight ship. It really had a lot of expectations, and that was where I learned the term work back and where I started looking at the way we do things through that lens.
Right.
So yeah,
Like,
project management.
yeah. Do you mean like the way we do things as designers or just as people in general? I,
Both. I started getting really intrigued with the intersection of the systems we've created, even for instance in project management, along with lifestyles and how we live. And I started thinking, where are the crossovers? I'm still interested in this. It's like big, but humans created these systems. And so they're connected to how we live, right? And how we think. And
Totally.
someone who isn't, I'm not only an operational person, that's a part of me, but I'm really wondering how we get on the right pathway toward reducing carbon emissions. And importantly, how do we get brands on this pathway? And so that means, I feel anyways, my one of the many answers is I need to prove the business case. I need to show them this is the right path
Yeah.
and it's going to save you money.
Mm.
And I have to try to I'm looking for ways of how it can do that in the short term,
Right.
because that's how planning is done. Should they do it that way? No, they should also be planning long term, right? But I think what I find is most businesses are not planning like long term. They're planning like 4 or 5 years
Yeah.
out, and because of shareholders, right? I'm talking
Mm.
scaled businesses.
Mm.
And anyway, rambling on, but
No, it's so good.
and so I guess I'm just always thinking around that lens of getting buy-in.
Right.
How, because sustainability, in my opinion, is largely philanthropic still, and that goes for the EU as
Mm,
well as, and especially in the US. But that's just my point of view, is there's a lot of philanthropy. And I think as a group of people who are in that industry, we really need to start helping each other,
mm,
really identify how we're going to give the brands what they expect to some degree,
right.
because we don't have regulation here.
Right. In the
It's,
US, yeah.
yeah, it's all voluntary. And
Yeah.
until it's not, until there is solid regulation, and other than California, I should, of course,
Right, yes.
point out. But that's the future of that, I think, is a little, I think those of us are in sustainability are a little nervous, about
Yeah,
that.
totally.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially with the current government. I think I heard that New York was trying
Right.
to pass a bill, but I think that was before the most recent office. But yeah, I'm to that point, I'm interested to see what ends up happening in Europe when the CSRD comes into place more fully because they keep
Me
pushing it
too.
back, which is the most frustrating thing because I want to see what the effects are. I want to kind of like see what the consequences of the governance structure is.
Yeah, me
It's very
too.
important.
Me too. And I think there's so much, like, the EU is our testing ground in a way. And so that kind of, all of that, what I just shared, does take us to my thesis work.
Right.
And like we keep hearing about collaboration. And
Hmm.
I think probably as long as I've been in the room and sustainability, which has been about 4 5 years now,
Mm.
really just pushing my way in since 2020. I
Yeah,
was always interested, which, that's a whole backstory, but I was always
yeah,
interested, and like I said, through design, etc. And I
right.
was at Nike, so there's kind of elements, core elements about sustainability at Nike. But
Okay.
I started really getting into the room to listen in 2020 with COVID,
Mm.
and because everything went online,
Yeah.
and I was work from home then for the
Okay.
first time in my life. And so I started to show up for those things that I could find. And it was honestly through everything online. And it became global, and my world really expanded, and my knowledge began to expand.
Mm.
So it was through all that knowledge sharing that other people were doing during COVID, during lockdown, that the there was probably a few other people like me, probably a lot, who
For
were
sure.
like showing up and listening and going, yeah, I relate to this. Okay, cool. I want to do that. This is what I want to do. I want to
Yeah.
stop selling everyone's shit, and I want to, like, actually say, okay, here's how we're going to make this not be so taxing on people
Right.
and planet, because people are just as much in this as well,
For sure.
right? Yeah, and sustainability people, I think our folks can sometimes forget that it's not just materials, it's also about our workers
Totally.
all over. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the definition of sustainability also isn't, well, there isn't a universal one. And I think the most common one doesn't necessarily acknowledge that. But like fundamentally, sustainability is people, planet, profit. So like social aspect, environmental aspect, and then industrial aspect. But I think so much focus goes on to the industrial and like the triple bottom line. And then
Yeah.
but that even that is like focused on profit, not really focused on the social side or the environmental side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's always, I mean, with my
Yeah.
work, I narrowed in on the environmental side, but there's always because also it's harder to measure the social side. You know, like life cycle assessment is so much easier to measure for the environmental side than it is the social side, because the social side is more qualitative. So I think also in part that's why maybe there's less traction around the social side, just because it's not as easy to like compare to your like accounts.
Oh,
But
that's interesting.
but I
Yeah.
love the activism around the social side of sustainability. I think that that is more powerful usually than the environmental activism that's going on.
Yeah, that's it. And what I see at brands sometimes I've thought, oh, they're more social. They're always more on the
Right,
social side, and
right.
only because I'll see, all these pilots and
Mm,
initiatives that impact people,
mm,
but and then their metrics. I mean, you can download various reports and read what metrics they're tracking for the social aspect of
mm,
it. But I just think anybody who's tracking social is also tracking for ESG,
mm.
if that makes but that's, I don't know for sure 100%. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but they're both lacking.
Yeah, that's
That we
definitely true.
know. Yeah. Not enough people are doing it.
Yeah,
But it's easy to say, I'm not here to say, oh, brands or businesses will say, but anybody who's putting product out there, which is everybody,
mm,
like they're bad. I mean, I think I have my personal opinions, but
right.
when I go into conducting research that I want to use for perhaps with clients or largely for myself
Mm,
too,
mm.
to inform myself, I'm doing my best to bring in this attitude of at least some neutrality.
Yeah, I think
I
you.
do have, I know I want to save the planet. I want to believe we can save the planet. I
Right.
want to believe humans can figure it out.
Mm.
But I think it's really more complicated than saying it's brand's fault or it's government's fault
Oh,
or
for
it's
sure.
consumers' fault,
Oh, for sure.
right?
Yeah, it's all interconnected. You can't blame one without blaming
Yeah.
the other. But equally, though, with that, though, you can't solve the problem without everyone trying to solve it together.
Yeah. So how do we solve it together?
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
where my paper comes in.
I was just about to ask you. So your paper was all about collaboration and looking at the Dutch government, right?
Yeah, I used the Netherlands as kind of, you could say case study, but there's a lot of case studies in there, right? And they used three initiatives and three government policies. And
Mm,
at this point, they're all things that I would say anybody who's following sustainability is familiar with, and include the Denim deal, Fashion for Good, also their EPR laws, and
sorry, just quickly, extended producer responsibility for those who don't know is what
oh
EPR.
yeah, yeah, and which those are gaining in popularity, right, in the United States
Yeah.
in variations,
Mm,
and therefore their success will be different as well. But
mm,
they're developing EPR laws and by state over here,
mm. That's really,
um, which is encouraging.
yeah,
It's
definitely.
something, yeah. But California is definitely leading the way on that, and has the most extensive laws. So, and I chose them because there's actually really a strong cultural element to everything I do. I was, as a journalist and as a photographer, I worked in youth culture and I worked in brand culture and magazines and stuff. And so I've always had this, I was trained really to do all this deep research on culture and
Mm,
connecting lifestyle and people in different regions around the world.
okay.
And so think that's always in the back of my mind too. And so I really wanted to understand, the Netherlands is a really unique place for
Mm,
collaboration, and they have what's called the Polder model, and which,
what is that?
well, the Polder model is something, it's arguably not, like, it's not a collaboration method. To my understanding, it's really a sort of something that evolved and generated over time. And
Okay.
it represents what has become in social work called collaborative governance.
Mm,
But
okay.
you could say its origin, I guess I would say collaborative governance's origins
Mhm.
could generate from the Polder model.
Mm,
So
okay.
let me go back a little bit. So Netherlands. So why Netherlands? Netherlands because Netherlands, is the founding area of libertarianism and democracy, stock market. So a lot of these very big things, their connection, of course, to the human slave trade is really, really important
Right.
with trade. Yeah, we don't, I think in sustainability, we don't have that conversation enough,
Mm.
is like how we got here into this global trade, yes, relationship that we have, right? And
Right.
of course, it generates from the global slave trade,
Mm.
which America ended up taking and going on steroids with.
Mm.
But it all kind of came from there. And so I thought that that is a really unique point of reference. And
Mm.
they're also now, more importantly, like they have this, they're a part of all of those things, the
Mm.
Netherlands, but now they're in this place where they're also really a hub for circular textiles,
Mm.
for circularity, for policy and initiatives and pilots and entrepreneurship.
Right.
And so, yeah, they have a really strong culture of entrepreneurship within a region, meaning the EU, that a
Mm.
lot of Americans you'll hear say it's not generating innovation. And they
Interesting.
say that that is in part because of their commitment to a circular economy,
Mm.
which they've been on that journey for over 20 years now,
Mm.
with the EU Green Deal. And that relationship is, sorry, I'm losing my thought, but but that relationship for them really, well,
Well, I was going to say, you're saying so many things already that I'm
yeah,
wanting
it's
to
all
ask you
intertwined.
about already. Like, there are so many tangents that we can go off just with that. So I'm not surprised you're losing your train of thought. My brain is also going, wait, and this, and this.
Systems.
That's so interesting. And I didn't know that the stock
Systems.
exchange
Yeah.
came from the Netherlands. Like, that's
Yeah. Yeah.
fascinating.
Oh, so yeah, so I start thinking, oh, well, if this is where all the things came from,
Mm.
and then those systems were adopted and
Right.
expanded upon and became bigger, and
Mm.
America, especially, right, the stock market really
Right.
expanded on that. And this is how we work. I started feeling maybe that's the place to find answers.
Okay.
And
Mm.
yeah,
Go
and I
back
have
to
a
the
really good
root.
friend. Yeah. Yeah, and I have a very good friend who lives there who started a company in traceability, and it's
Oh,
cotton tracing from farm to, brand,
wow.
and he's done really well, and he's had a big influence on me as well.
Mm.
And so I started going there while I was in school, and I would go for the summers and I would research there at the Rijksmuseum,
Oh,
really researching origin stories. And that's still ongoing, and trying to identify by looking at timelines that go back thousands of years,
mm.
and where the crossings are with humanity and with nature and with events, natural events, and
Mm.
just like kind of identifying, are there patterns, are there intersections, and where are those intersections? And
Right.
so all of that is that systems thinking
Totally.
that, it's complicated. And I just want to do that for the rest of my life. I want to do that and help businesses learn from these things.
Right. That's a
Hmm.
fascinating way to frame it. Because I think people try to get
Yeah.
to the root cause of the problem, but without doing that deeper research. What
And I don't know everyone does need to do that, but I think there might be something there, but I'm still in the middle of all that. So
was there an origin story that in particular that stood out to you? Or kind of an overarching lesson that you kind of took away from the research?
well, yeah, I mean, it definitely is connected to the human slave trade, yeah, for sure. I mean, that period of time is, as many of us know, is really how corporations developed, and how our systems of managing people, how the relationship between regions and labor really became heightened. So the system of exploitation, right, is something that unfortunately fashion apparel has really struggled with
Mm.
changing.
Right.
And I find that in my research, when I'm looking at things, what I see is a direct relationship with that period of time. Now, it's important to then say, where did that come from? right? And yeah, and looking at the most, we're talking about the most basic human kind of parts of us, but something we don't often discuss is, of course, belief systems,
Mm,
systems of belief, and how those systems of belief reinforced or supported the systems of business back then and the systems of government back then as well. And when I say back then, I mean, I guess you could say, I don't have any dates in front of me, but probably I'm thinking really like the 1600s
okay.
onward.
Okay.
And and then you have what's interconnected with that, of course, is war. And I mean, it's everything.
Mm,
It's everything in it, and it's how we've developed our relationships with each other for so long. There's other people who are doing this who are really, really amazing, including the director of my program, which is Michelle Gabriel, and she's doing it in a really interesting way, and she's in academia.
mm,
And so I'm not technically in academia right now,
okay.
but her teaching, along with my own curiosity about these things, really made me start just wanting to understand why we do things the way we do them
Right.
in business. Yeah. Yeah. And so I just, because, and with that's all with the goal though, right? Of, well, if we understand how we got here, we can find the gaps, identify the gaps, or identify places where we might be able to make change.
Totally. And I think also avoid the band-aid solutions, like the solutions that just fix the obvious problem instead of getting to the root cause of that problem. I think it's so important.
Yeah, I'm really interested in root causes.
Yeah, same.
And so some of those things they've just kind of convinced me, right? We're in a world of data and metrics, and I am a qualitative researcher largely, but I do data analysis. So I will conduct analysis looking at numbers or looking at findings from other social research and
Mhm.
conclude stories from that, I guess you could say, and build storytelling around that.
Right.
And something that's always just there right now that I'm thinking a lot about is the
Mhm.
sustainability mindset, and also the earliest relationship that we have with all of these systems of power, right?
Mhm.
And are really in here.
Right.
Yeah. And so how do we change everything out there if
Right.
we're not yet in a place where we're here and willing to change what's here?
Totally, totally. I think that links back to what you were saying earlier too, like everything that's around us was invented by someone. Like it's
Right.
all of the systems in which we operate in our modern society, the economy, our cars, whatever it was made up by someone. And so I think people forget that because it was made up by someone, we have the power to make something else up that can be more sustainable and to change it. Because I think also, like, even in my own life, for so many years, it's just, oh, that's the way it's done. That's the system. The system's set up this way. And that's kind of a powerless mindset. I much prefer the mindset of, okay, let's get to the root cause of the problem. How did this come to be? Oh, it was the slave trade. Okay, how can we change this exploitative mindset? Is that ever going to happen? Is it possible to do that in a non-violent way? Or do you have to use war to then make it change? These are all of these questions have been in my head for a few years. And actually, I was having a conversation with a friend about it 2 days ago. And so I think it's super relevant. And
Oh, good.
it's making me think as well. Have you read Sand Talk? I think the long
No.
title is like Sand Talk, how Indigenous knowledge or Indigenous thinking can help make the world more sustainable or
Ooh.
something like that. But twice now, when you've been talking, I've thought of the author's name is Tyson Yunker Porter, and he's an awesome writer. Really, really easy to read. It's very engaging. But he he has a couple of quotes of his came to mind, and one was if you don't share your knowledge, you're stopping a potential creation event from happening for someone else. And that came
Mm.
up right at our beginning of our conversation
Hmm.
when you were talking about people sharing their knowledge and you sharing your knowledge. And, so much good can come from open knowledge sharing and collaboration. And then the other one was kind of how he was backtracking as well, trying to kind of explain how our society, Western society, came to be and how it was built off all these exploitative things and how our education system was set up to make us good soldiers for war and all of these things. And it's super interesting. It's such a fascinating read. And then the other thing, the third thing was the storytelling from it and how so he's mainly talking about Australian Indigenous cultures, but he also touches on a few others around the world. But how in Australia, the book's called Sand Talk because the stories and the knowledge is passed down verbally and through symbols drawn in the sand on the floor,
Oh,
opposed to writing and things.
ooh,
And so that just links back to storytelling as well. And it's so, so important. And it seems to come up in all of the Indigenous cultures that I've read about or learnt about or had the pleasure of experiencing. It's always been down to verbal or visual storytelling. And I think I don't know, I'm just really interested to get your opinion on it as a photographer and as a visual person, but who also now has to work in this world where I'm guessing through journalism you wrote a lot and you had a lot of written words and your thesis, obviously you wrote a thesis, like that's a lot of writing. Like what kind of how is storytelling
yeah,
playing its role for you in sustainability and just life
yeah.
in general, I guess.
I mean, it's definitely needed. I'm exploring that now. I haven't brought those worlds together usually yet,
Ooh,
but
interesting. Okay.
yeah, because I put my creative side, I said, okay, cool. I did this for 20 years now. I'm going to put it over here
Mm,
and I'm going to go pursue this really technical and analytical side of things. And,
mm.
when I was in packaging design specifically at Nike. And so, right. Oh, I said that. And then that just kind of I was still overseeing production, but I wasn't the deep creative anymore. And I
Okay.
was overseeing the art direction teams and things like that, but really I was producing everything, executive
Okay,
producer.
interesting.
And of those things, I'm using titles that might be more understandable to other people, but
Okay.
or different varieties of people out there.
Mhm.
But and I'm right now really, really searching for that intersection, but that isn't because I want it to be that way necessarily. It's because with image making, and so as a journalist, I was lifestyle and fashion, but I was also largely photojournalist. So
Mm.
and so I would get asked to write things, and sometimes as a tastemaker or thought leader in those ways. But I was a photographer too. And so my storytelling is definitely, it's absolutely taking, a huge amount of information and putting that into something that people can look at and understand very quickly. That's with particularly photojournalism. We'll say there's all kinds of photography and I did a lot of types, but
Mhm.
with that, and sometimes I called them one-shot wonders because the whole industry's changed.
Right.
And it went from I would be hired to do covers and full spreads
Mhm.
and then that over time changed, right, to become more like clips or become
Mhm.
just one image to go with the copy. But through all of those, I was working very, very intertwined with the writers and the editors and the publishers.
Mm.
And so you're a part of this team that you need to understand, like as a photographer
Mhm.
and who's doing intake around, you're giving your own point of view as well. And you have the final say, right? Because you're taking a picture, but
Right.
you are in a lot of ways, you do, anyways, I should say. But the real mastery is when you're in this place where you can take in what other people need and want and expect.
Mhm.
There's a lot of pressure for sure.
Right.
And take that in and spin it in your way and
Right.
put it back out yes, and then you're working with people. I always photograph with people. And so it's absolutely knowledge sharing.
Mm.
And and even if it's not journalism, it's absolutely knowledge sharing because you can share through an image just the feeling, right? We all know that.
Totally.
And but the whole world of imagery has shifted in the last 20 years.
Mm.
And the relationship societies have with images and photography and video and film is now dominated by social media,
Right.
therefore by product placement and by influencers and
Mm.
by marketing.
Mm.
And that was how I got into marketing, actually, was through that
Interesting.
relationship.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So and then yeah, I went to brand, I started working at brands, and it was like I decided I don't want to use my talent to do this to this degree, unless it was like a really good place. Like I helped start this brand called Hand Eye Supply with Core 77 and two other really great people. And it was a brand that there was just nothing like it. You could call it an industrial design brand.
Mm.
And but it did have clothing and it had objects, and it was all built around a culture that we developed for our brand strategy of the maker culture
Mm.
and design culture.
That sounds
So
amazing. I want to look at it.
it had its moment. It
Okay.
was really interesting. I was there 5 years as an art director, and
Amazing.
we were nimble and small and about 15 people, and we really worked hard.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
But that also was really when I started crossing over really every day in my life,
Mm.
crossing over from how that intersection of storytelling, identity,
Mm.
and marketing.
Mm.
So,
That's
yeah.
interesting. Did you work on sustainability during that time, or did that come later?
Well, we didn't call it that then.
Right.
It was definitely ESG principles, yeah, for sure, as far as social impact principles, because it was a brand that we built around community and a really specific community. And the maker culture took off as, 2010 to 2015. And it was a leading example, and it really had a strong following around the world in the group of people who how we define a maker as people who work with their hands every
Mm.
day,
Mm.
which also that's a pretty wide net.
I like
And that
that.
was how,
It,
yeah,
it,
and
it
that was,
reminds me of the Nike, anyone who has a body is an athlete.
yeah, I know.
Yeah. But I
I was
like
like,
that. I like that whoever has
what?
hands is a maker. That's great.
Yeah, it's true. And we did that. That was before they did that. So,
Was it? No way.
oh yeah.
So cool.
Yeah, I
Amazing.
think that the maker movement was really a neat moment in the world
Yeah.
too. But in Portland, it was huge. It
Wow.
was so huge. And as it was in Paris and it was in Tokyo and a few other like cities where it just really took, I mean, New York, it did end up in Brooklyn. It had definitely had its
Yeah,
time as
Brooklyn.
well. And it's now permanent. I think it's permanent. I think it was something that like had a popular time,
Mm.
and then it's now become a norm.
Mm.
And
Maker movement, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I think it's still there, and but it definitely connects to sustainability because
Mm.
while I was at Core 77, I was then exposed to how things were made
Mm.
and all kinds of things. I mean, I think I worked with over 300 different makers,
Wow.
probably more. If I counted 353 or something like that, I was like keeping a little chart of that. And through that, that means that I was learning, documenting, and work. And then I hired a writer. I didn't do all that work then because then I would hire people to do it,
Yeah.
and I would oversee and manage that and learn about the processes
Mm.
of how these products were made. And sometimes they were clothing, and sometimes they were, a vase, or sometimes it was, I don't know, it was, I'm like looking around my studio, like, like what? Like it could be anything.
Yeah.
Furniture, it could be, and it could be innovation. And so we covered all kinds of things. Could be food.
Right.
And
Amazing.
it really was a lot of fun to be learning all about that. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go on and become like this big thing at out in the commercial world. And then I realized that that commercial world was maybe different than what I had expected, because I think I didn't understand how connected to sustainability
Mm,
and the culture around sustainability, how much that was a natural part of who I am.
interesting. Yeah. Okay.
So the advertising world I became part of, but I was not happy in it.
Mm,
So,
I can see why. A lot of the advertising and a lot of the marketing is pushing a narrative that isn't necessarily sustainable, but that sounds convincingly sustainable. So I could get how that would almost be soul-sucking if you have this passion for sustainability and you're
and how
crafting
we did it,
all of
yeah,
these
we did it
narratives that
through,
sell a false truth.
they certainly can. And I mean, but I guess how I view that is, well, everything is like that. And I mean, so there's different degrees of it,
Mm.
but there's always public facing things. But this is my jaded marketing side coming out, and which is open to any feedback or your experience as well. You have a lot of great experience. So, but I just thought what I was seeing on paper at places was not what I was experiencing while working there. In
Interesting.
addition, yeah, in addition to what I was, yeah, what the realities were of it's all smoke and mirrors.
Mm, right.
Yeah, it is. But I loved making, and I loved making things. And so I was very much in the stage through that period of that was most of my life for a long time.
Mhm.
I really saw things through that lens, but I love making things.
Mm,
I love making beautiful things, and I love sharing a beautiful story, and I love showing the beauty of fashion. And so I worked with a lot of designers during that period as well on the side, and a lot of fashion designers and graphic designers and all kinds of people in design. But what I was not often seeing was the deeper questioning of the system.
okay. That's interesting. I wonder, do you think it's changed now over the years, or do you think it was just, or if it's still the case now?
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. I think there are certainly individuals out there who are just like forging a pathway
Mm,
forward, and absolutely there's more people out there trying to do it.
mm,
And I think that's really important.
mm,
Of course, though, how I look at it is the infrastructure isn't there.
mm.
And so the pattern is kind of there, right? They come. And so did we. We were those people
Oh,
at
totally,
core
totally,
at
totally.
Hand Eye Supply and Core 77. We were trying to do that. We were all really young, and we're like, okay, we're gonna make this amazing brand. It's gonna be
Yeah,
good. It's gonna be good for people. And
yeah.
it was just who we were, though. And now I think there's a lot of sophistication around the conversation that we didn't have anyways as a group, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that can lead to really good things.
Mm,
But they're just now, also though, my own understanding has evolved quite a lot since that period of time, and I've matured as
mm,
a person, and I want something different, right, in
right.
my relationship with the world
Mm,
and with people as well. And so I think that all of those things, I don't know 100%, like if I'm the right person to say that, yeah, it's all changed or it's all out there. Or designers are still not paying enough attention, because also in my life I get to work with people who are paying attention.
right,
Yeah, and those are the people that really excite me.
right.
Whether it's a designer or it's someone like us, a strategist
Mm,
or an entrepreneur
mm.
or a project manager. There is no one in the sustainability system that isn't important.
Oh, totally.
And
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And I think that
Yeah.
can also even go to people who are just interested in sustainability. Like even just
Yes, me too.
in their lifestyle and in their lives, like even if there's just one glimpse of interest, that's still super important. Like there's so much change that can come
Agreed.
just from that one little spark of curiosity. But I,
I can't agree more.
yeah.
Yeah. And I was that person,
Oh,
right?
same here,
I mean,
same here.
sure. Yeah, we were creatives
Yeah.
and we were kind of in the fashion world as a designer, as a photographer, storyteller, but we were those people.
Mm.
And now we're here we are. I mean, I still feel like I'm that person a lot. The
Oh,
sustainability industry has its own demons to deal with, which
totally.
are all just a part of being human,
Yeah,
ego.
yeah, for sure.
And if we're going to expand sustainability, we have got to open up to each other.
100%. It does lead back to that collaboration, but that's something that I love so much. That's also why I asked you, like, if you thought it was just the designer mindset or people generally's mindset, because I think with my design brain so often, but I don't necessarily realize that it's my design brain that's thinking. I just kind of do it, and then it's in hindsight, I'm like, oh wow, that was such a like I'm very, whenever I think of a problem, I can literally see it in my mind breaking out as if I was making clothing. Like it happens with almost any problem I'm facing. Like it literally just like in my brain, I can see it. And then I pick apart the pieces individually and then sew them back together almost and then go, yeah, that would be a good
Right.
outcome. Like that dress would look pretty or whatever it is. But I think that way all the time. And so I get so excited when I speak to other people who are creatively minded, and that doesn't mean that they have to be a designer or in the creative industry, just people who are enthusiastic and passionate and like
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
understand how things work and want to change a small area of their life. Like that gets me so excited as well. And so then when you get to meet people who have that mindset, but who are either like super integrated into the sustainability space or just like super passionate about whatever it is that they're doing, that's then even more amplified and even more amazing. But I really do think that it's this like the passion and the connecting with people and the knowledge exchange that's so exciting and important. And I think that that's one of the greatest levers for change.
Yeah. Do you use tools for that? Because you mentioned something that I thought was really interesting. But turn it
Oh
around.
yeah. Do
I
it. You
thought,
can ask me questions. I don't mind.
well, this ability you have to visualize when something isn't there, which I also have,
Mm,
which I didn't realize was a gift, or you could say a gift, a skill. It's
mm,
unique. Not
mm,
everybody can, and I didn't know that until I was maybe in my 30s or something like that, And now I'm well aware of this, and it's really helpful.
mm.
So do you do mind mapping, or do you use anything to do that that is a visual element, like for design thinking?
It depends on how big the problem or the project is. Sometimes
Mhm.
I quite like using Notion. And so the template will vary based on whatever it is that I'm trying to map out. But I quite like how I have two. So one of them is like very rigid. So Notion is like very rigid. I find it to be very rigid. And so I can really like plug in all of these crazy different thoughts that I'm having and see them in a very organized, structured way. And then it will break it down in whatever way Notion breaks it down in a way that's mm, under like digestible, I guess, like bite-sized pieces of information. On the other side, I then sometimes use Miro, which is like a
Ah,
big mind map. And so with that, I can be really visual and I can do all the links and all the ties and do like a proper kind of mind map. And I can draw in visual elements and I can draw in research and I can put all the things together and then see it as if it was kind of in my mind. But a lot of like those are kind of like formal tools. A lot of the time though, what I'll do is I'll just sit and think and then write down thoughts either in a Google Doc or like written out in a notebook or whatever. And then I usually go from there. But sometimes if it's like a 3 month project that I'm working on and I need to kind of get those thoughts down, A, so I can see them and keep track of them from the beginning, and B, so that I can then share progress with the client, then I'll probably use the more formal tools. but I always
Mhm.
just take a moment just to sit and think and then write down whatever conclusions I come up with, I guess, or findings.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much and can really relate with that. And
Mm.
that that systems mapping and connecting the dots between things all the time. That's how I am too. So I
Yeah.
love, yeah,
Are there
I
any
do.
tools that you like to use?
Yeah, definitely. I also use Miro. I also use Lucid Charts. And like I'll use Lucid Charts for client stuff when I
Mhm.
sometimes I have to create like the critical path or something that tracks the entire creative journey for making something at a company.
Mm.
We use Lucid Charts and I love Miro. I think Miro is really fun and playful and has a lot of potential. I'd like to learn to use it more. I use it in school really quite a bit.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, my instructors use it, and it was really good
Mm.
for collaboration on that kind of thing, ideation
Okay.
with people in different places. So
Mm.
online, that was nice. And I have a board over here
Okay.
that I have that is actually I put sticky notes on it
Mhm.
and I make all kinds of pathways
Oh,
using
so
sticky
fun.
notes.
Okay.
And let it sit there and I go look at it and let it sit there and I'll look
Yeah.
at it and then come back to it and move things around. So I do that. And I also other tools. I mean, I'll use anything, online, anything digital online, but
Yeah.
those I use Excel a lot.
Okay. Yeah, I do love
That's
Google
yeah,
Sheets.
more spreadsheet. Yeah, that's what
I
I'm
love
doing data
spreadsheets.
analysis. I'm like,
I look at
and
my spreadsheet every day. There's not a day that goes by that I'm not checking it with a spreadsheet.
and but I also something that's interesting that I have used, which I don't always use, and not for everything because it's a little woo-woo, is
Mm.
like tarot.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, and I have used the tarot as a tool, not for
Mm.
divination, but I'll use it as a tool when I get stuck with something and I'm
Oh,
not
that's so cool.
moving past it. Sometimes the tarot can really help me move past my own, getting in my own way because I
Mm.
have a habit of that. I can overthink things and, you know, yeah, I'll just like keep digging and digging and digging and
It's easy to do. Can you do tarot yourself or do you go to someone?
I do it myself. Yeah,
That's so fun.
I do it myself. My husband designed a tarot deck called
No
Lazarus Tarot.
way.
It's pretty great, actually.
Wait, what?
And
That's so cool.
we also during COVID, by the
Okay.
way, we were, and going a little stir crazy. I helped him and we decided, okay, he's a college instructor. He teaches painting, art, and
Oh,
design,
amazing.
drawing. Yeah, yeah. And so we signed up to do something together, which was how to make a tarot deck and how to produce it. And we were like everybody, I think we were pretty curious about the tarot back then, it's five years ago.
Okay.
And we learned how to make and produce one and go into production with it. And he went ahead and did it.
Incredible.
Working, so I didn't have time to actually make mine. But I was like, I could do a photo collage one and had all these great ideas. I still have them.
Yeah,
But ultimately he ended up making it and I helped him with it. And
that's so
yeah,
cool.
yeah. And so we continued on that journey too. So as far as just keeping interested in how can this be used as a tool for
Mm,
life.
mm.
Yeah.
That's
And so I think it's important actually to have bridges between your analytical life and your business life and your what I'll like hard skills and your soft skills.
yeah.
I do. I think there's maybe it is the creative. Maybe I don't, I'd be curious what you feel about all this, but hiking fits in there with me. I told you I was like, I
Hmm.
hike a lot, of
Hmm.
course. In Portland, you can do that. So there's woods everywhere.
Yeah, I
And so,
really want to go. I haven't been.
yeah, so that's a nice thing about Portland. You hear all this bad press about Portland,
Oh,
but
really? I don't hear any of the bad, but maybe that's I'm just removed from it.
oh, it's just, it's from our top and chief is really, we had these protests here that lasted for like a year.
Oh,
So
really? Oh, wow.
nonstop every day for like a year or something like that. And so it got a bad rap. Portland kind of got a bad rap with the government, and
Okay.
it's also like politics. What do politics have to do with it? Everything.
Everything is political.
Yeah. So I guess I am always interested in a balance, and how can my soft side
Mm,
inform my hard side, and
mm,
how can my hard side inform my soft side too?
mm,
And so I really try to, I think I'm actually pretty naturally in the center of left brain, right brain
mhm,
thinking,
mm.
and it just towards that. So
Yeah, it's
um
good.
yeah, so I'll spin it around into the
Yeah,
thesis,
I
which
think,
was called, I'll just read it, Collaborative Governance for a Circular Future,
mhm,
sites from the Netherlands. And so they weren't full-on case studies as we were talking about earlier,
yeah.
but there are a lot of insights there. And the Polder model
Mhm,
was a natural way that people came together to
mm,
collaborate, really in order to survive, because the Netherlands is on water. It's largely it's under sea level and is often underwater, especially back then. And so they developed the canal, together the community developed the canals to canal the water out of those region, out of the farmlands. And I think there's a lot to learn from that, just what we do naturally
mhm,
with each
mm.
other. And could even throw biomimicry in there. What happens naturally in the world? I know, touching on everything. What happens naturally, and how can we learn from that? And so I decided to look at that, and that really influenced and that's how I found out about collaborative governance. I didn't know about it, honestly.
Okay.
It wasn't something being taught. I've
Yeah,
since then learned that collaborative governance is used by a lot of people for circular strategy.
right.
And that's how I use it now as well. And what that means for anyone out there also learning on this lifelong journey we have, it's really, in short, someone from every type of sector is in the room. And so maybe you have suppliers, you have brands, you have manufacturers, you have mills, you have somebody, you have the government there, nonprofit, NGOs. You have stakeholders. Ideally, of course, we have stakeholders that are workers, which
Mhm,
is still very underrepresented for so many reasons, you know, but it's still very underrepresented. And I do think there's a lot we could do to bring them into the room and learn from them as well.
sure.
And that's where research comes into play. And why research is very important is because I do believe, it might be naive, but I do believe researchers are human. Of course, they have their own opinion about things, but when they're researching, and journalists, but the journalists I worked with, they try to bring in a neutral approach toward how they gather the information.
Mhm,
It doesn't mean they don't have an opinion. That's true. We can't ever really escape that.
right.
I just know the skeptics out there are going to be like, there's always someone with an opinion,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
always judgment. There is always judgment.
for sure.
But I do trust that that's why we have researchers that can create a methodology that can be repeated, and that can be repeated by anyone. It could be repeated by someone who doesn't have the same political beliefs as you, and
Mhm,
see what their outcomes
mm,
are. And they could be held side by side, and then together we have more information to make our decisions about moving forward.
yeah.
And so, you know, I think research is really important. I think research should be a part of a brand. I think some, yeah, I think some have done that and do that. I know Intel did used to do that on the tech side of things.
Oh,
With
yeah.
They have a big in Portland. They're big in Portland. They have a headquarters here,
Okay.
also not far from Nike actually. But
Okay.
and years ago, I was at a talk with an anthropologist, and this
Mm.
anthropologist worked there. And I
No.
thought, what?
That's so
Oh,
cool.
man.
That
And
is
so
so
they use
cool.
all of her cultural insights
Yeah,
to inform their strategies. So
that's very cool. That is very interesting. I, I really do think it's important and necessary to tie all of these stakeholders together and to
me too.
also tie in the people who will be impacted should the product not be able to be recycled. Or even, I guess, the recyclers. The recyclers should be on the room with that too. The,
Absolutely.
the
Yes, absolutely. They should be. And they're
upcyclers,
not. They're
sorters,
really not.
everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, people don't know. I mean, I've done that too, right? I mean, we all do it. We're all working, we're busy, we're
Mm,
following the system that we're in.
mm,
We don't have time always to find out
mm.
how does this other person do their job
Right.
and what is that job specifically. But now, as I've matured and I've learned, that is exactly what I bring to the table, right?
Mm.
Is let's get to know each other and how we do what we do.
Right.
And yeah, and in doing that, you create trust and you have a much better time of aligning an outcome, which takes me to collaboration. And
Hmm.
collaboration, right? That's a big word,
Mm.
or it's a small word. It's used a lot. And
It's
I've
used
seen,
a lot, very haphazardly.
well,
But I do
and
love the word.
that's why this all started was I was like, okay, great. I know how to collaborate, right? We're creatives.
Yeah.
I mean, we know how to collaborate, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing is I think we don't. I think most people don't know how to collaborate.
Mm,
And because our ego gets in the way. And so
that's true.
I, as a part of that, the collaborative governance for circular future research that was really interviewing experts about the way that they collaborate.
That's so
How do they
interesting.
collaborate? How do they know when they're collaborating well? What are steps that you take? And because the goal, I think, for me is to better understand, but mainly to create something that helps other people better understand how to show up in the
Mm,
room
mm,
and how these successes come. And the Denim deal, who I now work with as a brand strategist, is absolutely a really good example of how to use collaborative governance in a commercial way, which now it's an NGO now. It's a nonprofit technically still, but
okay.
it came from a government initiative
That's so cool. Wait, could you please explain a bit more, like how come, and also just a tiny background on what the denim deal is?
on how come,
How come it's a good example of collaborative governance?
yeah, because so the Denim deal, I think it was developed in 2020 as well,
Okay.
big year for everybody. And the Netherlands had put out like a call to its citizens. I mean, they were offering funding for everyday people who wanted to create a sustainable initiative
Mm,
and proposal. And so
mm,
you would create this proposal and submit it to the government, and then the government, and of course, but these proposals had to support the EU Green Deal, which the Netherlands sits under, and then also any Netherlands sustainability goals. And so the Denim Deal was developed sort of loosely from that. And there's a couple of different origin stories for it, so I'm not going to ruffle any feathers, but it doesn't matter because what happened was, but Amsterdam is a very big denim hub in the EU, arguably the denim hub in the EU.
mm,
And so it was proposed to start this working on this initiative, and the government approved it and gave them funding. And it brought together denim producers all through the Netherlands, as well as their suppliers. So that takes you to other countries and mills and manufacturers and recyclers.
mm.
And the mission was to create 3 million pairs of jeans that had like 3% post-consumer recycled cotton in them, which wasn't happening really. A little. I think Mud Jeans maybe was, I think they were probably the earliest on that.
Okay.
But Mud joined. So they got all these people who joined, all these brands who joined. as well as others, and because there's government support. And so there was real excitement from what I got, a real buzz going on in the country through the entrepreneurial lens of innovation. What can we do?
Right.
Nothing better to get a society excited than possibility.
Right? Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah. And that's what was happening. And so they had great success and they brought everybody into the room. There's a third party facilitator. So they did follow some ground rules. They did establish, Chatham House rules and also sign NDAs about any sensitive information. But it was all for the really intentional purpose of everybody exchanging information openly so that they could all together collaborate on the development of denim that had recycled cotton in it, which is very complex because you have to have a minimum order, so an MOQ that you have to meet that, and that's very hard to do if you're small or medium sized. And so they came together and worked together to be able to meet those demands and also to learn about it because no one was really doing it yet, and not a lot anyways. So they had more than that. They ended up selling over 3 million pairs, and they are all through Europe. It contributed to shifting Amsterdam and the Netherlands to making it a hub for circular textiles and innovation, which it still is.
Yeah.
And it also showed that it could be done.
Right.
And yeah, and they exceeded. So people will say, well, did it reduce emissions? Those are good questions. We got to ask each other and be open to those questions, those tougher questions.
Yeah.
Did it really matter? Did it save the world? It didn't save the world, but when you look at the Netherlands emissions, it did go down for a few years. It still has ticked up a little, but just that it went down at all in a few years, I thought was a really big accomplishment.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot to learn from that period of time now as well. And now the denim deal transitioned after the end. So that initiative in the Netherlands ended. So that means the funding stopped.
Okay.
And so there were some shifts in who's running it, and the people who at the core decided to take it on and continue and go international with it. And so that's how I work with them now, and they're in the process of growing it outside of the Netherlands. And now they have a hub that opened on Monday, actually, in Berlin. Yeah. And so
what? Sorry?
It opened in Berlin, a hub.
Okay.
For Denim Deal hub. Yeah. And they also have a Denim Deal hub in Paris.
No way.
And they're trying to expand. They will expand all over the world. And so the new mission now is to actually produce 3 billion.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a lot more.
13 billion pairs of jeans. I can't remember.
Will the percentage of recycled content increase as well, do you think?
Yeah. And so the percentage of recycled content originally was low, like 3%, right? But they ended up producing 20% by the end of that pilot. Okay. And now it remains at 20% or higher.
Okay.
So they're open to that. But there's all kinds of myth busting that needs to go on around that. And I find I hear that a lot, even here in Portland and in the United States. I mean, there's a lot of designers. And designers are good. They're good to have as your allies because they talk, right? They talk to people. Yeah, I mean, they're all about their designs and they want to share them and they want to talk about the materials, and that's really cool. But there is a lot of myth busting to go on within the design culture around recycled materials.
Ooh, like what?
Oh, like that the color is bad, that the texture is less quality, that the material itself is a lower quality. Technically, the material is, I'm not a materials expert, so research what I'm saying, but it does break down the fiber more, right? You recycle the fiber, it's not the same quality as the original organic cotton fiber, or non-organic cotton fiber. So the more you use it, it gets little tears in the fiber. But that doesn't, I think, especially for the use that we have these days, it's more than enough. is what I found from my own recycled denim. So,
Mm-hmm.
but they're working, but the denim deal is working on that, how to myth bust and show and prove, show people the quality with a collection. So we're in the process of that now.
That's really cool.
Collection made to show people this is what it looks like, this is what it
Yeah.
feels like,
That's
and
such
you can
important work.
do this. Yeah. Color's big, color's the biggest thing.
Right.
Is what, yeah,
It's
is
the
the biggest thing.
primary visual attraction to any product.
Yeah. And brands will say it's the biggest thing for consumers.
Mm.
And I wonder sometimes though where that information comes from, but I'm sure they're conducting their own market research. But yeah, that's kind of open-ended, right? And so but so those guys, the Denim Deal has done an expert job on getting a whole bunch of different types of people into the room, educating each other through cross-pollination and cross-knowledge sharing of skill sets and connections, and working together to meet minimum fabric orders that are required.
Which is so powerful.
Yeah.
I have this conversation with small founders quite often. They say that they want to work with more sustainable materials, whether that's regenerative organic cotton or a recycled material, and they can't meet the MOQs. And so it's come up a couple of times in conversation where we've kind of joked that we should start a cooperative of smaller brands to be able to purchase the bigger quantities. But apparently it's hard then to trace the production and everything. There's then all these like legal constraints and everything that come into play.
Yeah, then all that comes into play, and that's why we have really great people, Roman Narcy and Nicholas Crofty and Laura Beccaria. Those three people in particular work on that.
Awesome.
And they are committed to transparency and to sharing their knowledge with other people so it can be mimicked as well.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, and I think I met them all, through that research, through my thesis. I got to really great people. You get to talk to really great people.
It is so awesome when that happens.
That's how you learn the most.
It is.
Conversations.
Totally.
And we just hit it off. And I asked them after I graduated, my job ended also at the same time. And
oh, no way. Okay.
I really like to work with you guys. And they were like, yes, okay.
Amazing. That's so good when that happens. I love when you meet like-minded people to common passions. That's so good.
They're really, what is it? Walking the talk.
Yeah. It sounds like you all could make a course or a guide or some kind of white paper on how to do it, how to do collaborative governance. That would be so good.
I'm working on a guide about collaboration for them through the Denim lens right now.
Amazing.
And we're going to offer that out to the members. So, but I'll have my own, I'll have my own version. I've thought about writing a book actually about it.
No way.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
In particular for the sustainability world. Right? But I think I would just call it collaboration, because once I bring in collaborative governance, that's already a terminology that might alienate people a little bit.
Totally.
Yeah, and then to talk to more people too, who have different points of view about collaboration. And like you were mentioning, Indigenous ways of collaborating are really important.
Totally. 100%. Yeah, it'd be interesting to get that lens, and then the lens of someone who works in a more corporate job where it's kind of, I just think it would be an interesting juxtaposition to kind of see where the commonalities lie.
It really would, because my analysis through that research was that no one was using the model.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And I talked to, PhDs from Circ. I talked to a lot of variety of people. I tried to make my pool of those that I interviewed for primary research present the collaborative governance model. And they were largely in Netherlands, but there were also people in other countries and parts of the world. And largely, really, it was instinctual. Plus, there's the old NDA, right? And
Yeah.
NDAs aren't as commonly used in European settings, but in American settings, it always before even anything, right? And
Yeah.
because of the nation of litigation.
Hmm.
And so with that, there's fear. There's
Mm.
real fear
Mm.
that exists there. And I talked to brands. I talked to someone from Adidas, and I think it helped me gain a little more empathy, dare I say, for brands. Because I had kind of thought, oh, they're just like trying to do it all, like, behind their backs or this and that. But you know what? It's not the case. There's not. There might be some of that, and people might see this and be like, they are.
Yeah.
But I would say, okay, before I throw around that kind of language, right?
Hmm.
I think we got to understand it, what's happening, what the concerns are. And so I slowed down in my judgment,
Mm.
and I learned how to be a lot more professional through my education and through that thesis. And it gained a little bit more understanding of the pain points of not just people and planet, which are really important,
Mm.
but also of, the businesses. They do provide jobs and they do feel pressure around that as well. And it's hard to change a scaled business.
Totally.
Yeah, it's really, really challenging.
Yeah.
And I think everyone I've talked to so far since that time as well, and all the people I've known in brand have really wanted to do right by the world
Mm.
in at the level that I was at.
Promising. Yeah.
But I think we need to help each other. People do not know how to
Totally.
do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, without it all crumbling.
Right. Are you familiar with Leith Sharp's work?
No.
So she was a professor of mine and she taught sustainability leadership in the 21st century. But part of her work, she helped start the sustainability division at Harvard. But part of, I guess that's slightly misleading, not the educational program, but the actual campus-wide sustainability efforts. But part of her work though was interviewing all of these CEOs at like Fortune 100 companies and really understanding where kind of what their aspirations were in terms of sustainability and social things, and then where the levers of change could be. And then also looking at the hierarchical structure, which isn't really that adaptive, but it keeps businesses in business for extended periods of time. And so she then looked at how a more adaptive structure can then be implemented within these hierarchical structures to help implement this change. And so she worked with and helped train these CEOs basically to be more adaptive in their business. And so, like, Cola was one of them, and they're quite famous for being innovative and sustainability minded and all of these things. And there are a bunch of others. My mum happens to work at Cola, so that's always in the top of my mind. But it was a really interesting case study on how rigid structures can become more adaptive for better change, especially on the social and environmental side of things.
I
And it was
would
really
really
powerful.
yeah, I would really love to read.
Yeah.
It's like a lot. There's a lot there.
Hmm. There is a lot. I think the project was called Leaders on Purpose, but I can send it to you afterwards and I'll put it in the show notes as well so people can find it if they're interested.
Yeah, I wonder if, just if you think of yourself as just like a hyper curious person.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
And
A
so
100%.
I always try to tell people too, like, ask questions, ask
Hmm.
questions. And I was always asking, how can we do this better?
Hmm.
That's what I'm asking
It's
now.
an
How can
important question.
not like to say, oh, you suck.
Oh,
You're not doing
totally,
it.
totally.
Say, look, I think we can do it better. So
Mhm.
let's work together to find out how we can do it better. I
Totally.
mean, like an example that came to mind while we're talking is when you work at a large, let's say a medium to large size enterprise.
Mhm.
I've done that, right, and small, so that have that
Mhm.
range too. But you would never like say, let's spend millions of dollars on this new project management tool.
Mm,
They're changing it up. They want a new tool every couple of years.
mm,
Let's get a tool. It's going to cost, $25 million or something. And we have to implement it throughout the company.
mm,
And then we have to train everybody at the company.
right.
And then you have all that done. And then what if your workers still don't use it? What if they don't adapt to
Right.
it all the time?
Mm,
All the time. It's a key problem, right? That's a number one problem of new software platforms. The workers don't adopt it.
okay.
And so something that happened in rollout, right? Or could be something with the UX.
Mm, mm,
There could be all kinds of things,
mm,
right? So, but companies spend a lot of money on figuring that out because they feel that it is necessary.
right.
Yeah. And so I feel that can be that kind of approach
Hmm.
adopting can also be put toward circular business models.
100%. Totally. This is something that I'm trying to build out at the moment, which is being able to really get into the supply chain and really being able to talk to all of the workers and
Mm,
understanding what their definition of sustainability is, like what they actually need to keep doing that they cannot compromise on, that will never be able to be sustainable. Again, I'm still optimistic. I believe most things can be more sustainable, but in their opinion, like what cannot change, and then what can change. Where is some inefficiencies? Like where is waste coming out? All of these things. Like I think understanding that first and foremost before even in a corporate office coming up with a sustainability strategy and then forcing it upon the workers. I think getting on the ground and getting that knowledge first is more efficient and in the long run less time consuming and will give back better rewards because everyone's then on the same page and they helped build it. Like it's not like someone in some distant office is saying, right, you need to start doing this because it's more sustainable. And they're going, okay, but that completely ruins our production process. Like we can't do this because of this, this, and this reason. Like that's just not going to happen. And then you've got conflict. And then they're probably going to be unlikely to want to do the new solution anyway because there's all this tension between them, which is completely avoidable. But I think similarly, yeah, getting everyone in the room, getting everyone's opinion, and then building out the strategy, I think is a better way of doing it.
and that's what I saw that with. I was on a team that was doing research to build a new tool, right? A
Mm,
new project management tool, and
mm,
it was everything that you just described, and that's what made me think because people still didn't adapt, but they also did start the process of conducting that kind of primary research, right? To understand what's going on with the users, with the
right.
people who use it, the tool.
Mm,
And but they fell short. I mean, that's just the study wasn't managed properly, right?
okay.
And so it wasn't the most useful, but I still think it was the intention, I think, can be grown upon, right? And I think doing what you're doing is absolutely what we should be doing. And I would love to go with you if you're going. I have never been. So I am an academic, I am not someone who yet I haven't been involved in sourcing. And so I haven't been in the countries where workers are. And I really, really would like to go. I've worked with people in countries while I've again sat behind the desk over here
Mm,
and had a middleman too.
mm,
But but I haven't been the person there. And I do think that's critical.
I
It's
agree. I'm looking for
bring
someone to pilot it with. But
well,
similarly, it's a hard thing to do because I've been finding this. You mentioned something earlier, I'm trying to remember what you said, but basically that, oh no, it's hard being like, I think you can push this and take this further without making it sound like you're not doing enough, which isn't the case at all. Like people and brands are doing great, some people and brands are doing great sustainability work, but there's always more that you can do. And so it's that fine line of how do you say, I think you're doing excellent work, but I can see that you have this awesome opportunity to expand your horizons and do new things. Like, do you want to hop on this train with me and partner up and co-create in these amazing and magical ways? And it's that kind of framing which is challenging. I've been doing it a lot in the last couple of months, and it's really interesting seeing what wording works, what wording doesn't. But yeah, I'm also looking out for people and brands.
Yeah, it is the hardest part. I mean, the hardest part is getting buy-in from the people who
Hmm.
say, not to be crass, but who write the check, right? Uh,
Right.
I don't, something I thought, oh, we'll talk about. There's data. I have a lot of data and all of that. I recognize the importance of data for creating buy-in with
Hmm.
certain people. But I also think a big part of sustainability is common sense. And
Totally.
a big part of this, but when you're building the business case, you absolutely have to show data, you have to share the facts, you have to do all of that and do that research. And I do.
Mm.
But as far as for us in our conversation,
Mm.
I have lived enough, seen enough, and talked to enough experts and to understand the stories and believe that, sustainability or whatever term you want to use now, impact
Mm.
is just an absolutely better way to live.
I agree.
So
I think
for
regeneration
yourself,
also, yeah.
feeling empty because of your job, or you're tired of that, the constant up and down of the workplace or being dismissed by the
Mm.
workplace, sustainability, it absolutely an impact. It absolutely provides you purpose.
Mm.
It absolutely will help you learn to have the dialogue that you need to learn to have
Mm.
with people about it, because it's coming from this place of passion, and because I believe that if you're on that journey, it's what comes with that is understanding yourself better as well, and the choices that you make in the world a lot better.
Totally.
And that's like an emotional intelligence that I think is really intertwined with when you get interested in sustainability, because it's like holding yourself accountable. It's just the phrase of I mentioned earlier in our talk. You can't unsee what you see.
You
You
really
can't,
can't. It's really hard to.
and then it makes you just want to do things differently. And
Mhm.
so I think people out there willing to ask questions, any questions, in
Mm.
a respectful manner, are absolutely necessary right now.
I
Yeah.
completely agree.
Yeah, to ask the questions.
Hmm.
And I'm that annoying person. What about the feminine economy? What about why does it have to be circular economy? A lot of people say circular economy won't work because we don't have infrastructure for it. And there's truths to that, but we don't I don't know what else to do. What about the linear economy? Is it so bad? Yes. But I mean, it's okay to ask those questions as long, we're there to help you. And we should be willing to share our knowledge with each other. And if people want to meet each other, I think they should. I think that the whole guise of collaboration, transparency, or sorry, not guys, but those terms being thrown around in the sustainability culture,
Mhm.
really a lot of us in our own culture really need to walk the talk
Mm.
and practice those things with each other.
Mm.
And then that brings back to practicing those things with yourself.
Totally. I think people are such important. People have such a potential to be a powerful change agent wherever they are, in whichever
Right.
industry they work in whichever area of life they're interested in. And I think giving more power to the individual is really important because it's so easy to just sit back and say, oh, it's not my problem, it's the government's problem, or it's the business's problem. And that may be true. They're definitely a bigger percentage of the problem, but all of them are operated by people. And so connecting on that person individual level is so important.
Mhm.
and empowering as well. Like, who doesn't like to feel empowered?
Yeah, I do. Definitely. But I don't know, I always feel better with groups of
Mm,
people. Yeah,
yeah.
that makes
Oh,
yeah,
it totally makes
working on
sense.
something,
The community is so important.
yeah, as a team. I don't know, how do you feel when you're solopreneur, aren't you?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I am too, but I've been looking, right, for full-time work because I
Okay.
want experience of being in-house.
Hmm.
Um, and I find I just really miss that. I miss that camaraderie in the team.
Mm.
And just for having people to bounce off ideas and concepts and yeah.
Yeah, I think I definitely felt that, and I definitely do feel it on occasion, but I've built out a couple of things so I don't miss it so much because I really did like I really loved being at art school and you're all in the studio together and you're bouncing
Yeah,
ideas around and you're
yeah.
staying up until 2 a.m. finishing projects and there's just you're in it all the time, which I love. And I definitely did miss it. And so I built out two things. One of them is a weekly accountability meeting that I have with a friend who's also a solo sustainability consultant. And so we check in, we set our goals for the week, we then chat about how they're going, how our previous week went, how our future week is going to go. And so that's really nice because we get a check in on a kind of business level and then we chat a bit as friends. And then the other one is once a month, I host these conversations in partnership with this amazing circular designer called Fiona. And so they're called generative gatherings. And so once a month, we meet as makers, designers, consultants, strategists. I'm trying to think who else is in the group, photographers. There's a big, there aren't that many of us, but there's a big variety of what people do. And so once a month we meet and we alternate. One month we share around a particular topic and we have a theme. And so Fiona and I structure it a bit more. And then the other month, it'll just be free flowing. And so, whatever challenge you're facing at the moment, whether it's a portfolio piece or just a life piece or a work piece, you bring it to the table and then we problem solve it and critique it together, basically. And we have an ongoing WhatsApp group. So we can all message and we kind of support each other if like one friend just published an article and now has been asked to write a cover of a book, which is just amazing. And he works in biology and conservation. And so, and then it's lovely to see like a handbag designer respond to that message. So it's like a nice little synergistic community.
I love that. I really love that. And
Yeah,
have you
I should add
I
you to
think
it actually.
oh sure, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I absolutely love that. And thank you. Do you find do you see a difference between how people just how people are with sustainability from region to region, like meaning in US where we don't have a lot of policy government support in comparison to the EU or in comparison to Australia?
Do you mean like in these groups that I'm in or just in general?
Yeah, I mean, just that those groups are there. And I sometimes wonder if that's because in certain cultures that are supporting this move to a circular economy,
Mm.
it's just so much more ingrained into the culture. And so there are a lot more people who are meeting, coming together in these ways. But I mean, I know that exists here, but in Oregon, it's pretty small. Yeah, there's not.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a healthy balance because we have people from all over the place. We have Peru. I'm in Australia at the moment. We have people in the UK. We have people from Mexico, in the US, in Canada, in Vietnam. I think
Oh,
someone's in Indonesia at a time. Like we really are all over the place and from different nationalities as well. I think there's a healthy balance between India is another one, UAE. Anyway, I think there's a healthy balance between people joining being angry about the state of the government
yeah.
and optimistic and also sharing their work and what they're passionate about. But one thing that's coming to mind at the moment is because we start every session, I always open the session with a little breath work to ground everyone in the moment because I think it's quite hard if you're joining from different time zones. You could be just starting your day, or you could be like stressed ending your day, or you could be having lunch, like whatever it is. Like it's hard to not everyone's always on the same energetic level. And so I like to do a grounding thing. And something that one of the participants said is she was like, I was scared to be almost more spiritual in sustainability in a professional sense because I didn't think clients would want that and I didn't think that it looked professional. But seeing how like me and Fiona operate, she was like, you two are both super professional, even in hosting this space and in how you like move through life, but you also both have that like deep spiritual like need. Like I have to meditate pretty much every day. Otherwise my brain is just insane, like insane. And so I try to stay very grounded where I can. And I definitely could do more work. I'm definitely not doing enough, but like it's a genuine need for me. And so I like to make other people join in a grounded way. And Fiona's the exact same. It just so happens that I happen to lead that part of the thing, but she always closes us out with the closing circle, which is a similar kind of like grounding, like what are you inspired by? What are you hopeful for at the end of the session? So whatever, I don't know, depressing thing we may have spoken about during the session, there's usually always a positive, but if it is depressing, we always end on a high note, which is also
Nice.
really nice. So it was like I guess it's interesting to see how sustainability already gets so much. I think it has such a hard time being seen as being credible and professional and necessary for business, that it's interesting to hear how people who work in the space are almost scared to tie in an aspect that is actually so relevant because like you were saying, like it's all about what's in here. Like sustainability is a spirituality crisis, and if we're not connected to ourselves, it's very hard to become more sustainable. But I mean, that's coming from like this has taken me what 10 years to get to this point. Like I by no means did not start out like this, but it is interesting in that sense, I guess, to see how people arrive in a space.
Yeah, it is really interesting to learn that. And that's why I found too, yeah, everybody has this time. They just hit their wall with something.
Mm.
And I think the anger is very real too. I think, and the anger
Mm.
can to motivating factor, right? And
Mm.
but sure, I think how can you not be angry about
Mm. Totally.
happening to the world if you have empathy? Which
Right.
everything you were just saying really resonated with me in the sense of, oh, that's because I know that I have a lot of empathy.
Mm.
I wonder if you see yourself as an, well, there's having empathy and then there's an empath, right? Do
Mm.
you see yourself as having a lot of empathy?
I definitely am very empathetic. And I was actually given some questions the other day for an interview, and I was reading through them. And the last question was empathy is kind of, I think it's written out on my website or one of my brand pillars. And it was something, the question was something to do with how do you think empathy is important to the world of sustainability or something like that. And so I've been thinking about it. And like I am really empathetic, but I think that's just like I worked with a brand strategist to build out my brand. And so she brought that element out of what I had been saying. So I think for me, it wasn't necessarily at the forefront of my mind. I was just doing it. I always want to like uplift and support and empower people in whatever way I can. And so being able to recognize where they're at and potentially what they're feeling, I think is an important way to do that.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
You, when we met our first time too, I just thought, wow, we really have like some good connection there. And maybe we're identifying some of those
Yeah,
reasons.
definitely.
I guess that's why for talking with you, and I was saying, oh, there's all kinds of metrics, right? But
Mhm.
one, the metrics are inaccurate. Everybody,
Yeah.
that is accurate. The metrics are inaccurate.
Right.
So like you can throw anything out there and it's probably not correct, but
Mhm.
rough estimate, right? And
Mhm.
two, I think it's when humanity gets to this place that they don't move on what they see is occurring around them, and like they don't trying to be careful with my words. They don't take action.
Mhm.
I just think it's a really unhealthy place to be.
Mm,
You need numbers in order to take action, basically.
right.
It's one thing if you aren't aware and you know and you're learning about things, but if you read,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of information available.
Mm,
And, we know a lot of people, we don't read as much as we used to.
totally not, yeah.
And if you look deeper than social media, which there's so many reasons to do that in
Mm,
this day and age, I just think that the writing is on the wall, and I don't need metrics for me to see that there must be another way forward, and for people's mental health, right?
mhm,
And also for how we treat each other.
mm,
Like, so important. And that's a real problem at corporations, is the culture.
mm,
And then also how we treat the planet.
right.
It's all connected.
It is.
All of it. In America, anyways, right now, we're not treating each other very well.
Mm,
And it's just the way that it is right now. And someone who might see this might think that's really negative, but there are good things happening. But by and large, I think in my lifetime, I personally look at where things are at, where we have a very strong division of sides of people that are not communicating.
mm-hmm,
I think and one side is forcing another side,
right.
and maybe other people will see that differently, right? But I think that there is, and really, we're in a dire place
Mm,
where listening can be challenging, but we really need to be
mm,
listening and carving a way forward together. I was
totally.
talking to someone this morning, he's moving here from Germany
Oh,
to
wow.
move to
Okay.
LA, and he's worked on the EPR there. And
Oh,
anyways, we were just discussing his relocation over here, and I'm going to work with him on his strategy because he's an entrepreneur and he's going to start a business there in California.
amazing. Okay.
And honestly, my first thing was like, well, first recommendation, just verbally, is start to learn to understand every stakeholder in your group to make your EPR law
Mm,
be supported. I'm not talking about it, but to get the infrastructure for the EPR to be supported in California.
mm-hmm,
Like, you really need to not only know, okay, we need our recyclers in
mm-hmm,
the room with our CEOs and with our government, we
mm,
need, and citizens. But now comes the hard part, communicating with each other in a way that you can hear each other.
mm,
And to do that, the only way is to take time to understand each other.
totally. Totally. That and
Yeah,
non-violent communication.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it is so
I
important.
would leave it on a question
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
for anyone who sees it, or for you. That one question came up in my research today
Okay.
that is really around the adoption of tools, of a digital tool platform, any of them.
Mm,
But there's one that I've been looking at that's really interesting, that is about like ending overproduction or reducing overproduction.
okay.
And I keep coming back to this question of, okay, we built this great tool, right? There's a lot out there, right? I made a list. I'm going to post it, I think, on LinkedIn tomorrow,
Oh
actually.
yeah. Okay.
There's a list, and there's all these tools, and they're sort of similar, but they're a little bit different. And most of them can adapt and incorporate other tools like the HIG, or other traceability tools. But how do we get consumers to get on board with pre-ordering product?
Mm,
So we have it. So that comes back to my metrics and the numbers. We have all these numbers, we have all these metrics. I'm really a believer that we have everything.
Mm-hmm.
We have everything we need,
Mm,
but we have to also start looking at our behavior more.
totally.
Yeah. And that starts with ourselves.
100%. I
You
am
know,
going to
not,
leave that open-ended.
yeah,
I
yeah,
completely agree with you though. It's an
yeah,
interesting, thought-provoking question.
change society. So they see, oh, I can pre-order
Yeah.
this shirt. And then they go, yeah, cool, I want to pre-order that.
Mm.
So it doesn't exist. And so, yeah,
It's a really hard question. And even just like if I take off my sustainability hat and just as a consumer, like I know that I'm like, oh, I see this and it's pretty, I want it. And then it's usually, oh, but I want it now. That's a
right.
really hard habit to break. That is a really hard habit to break. It is a very
Yeah,
interesting question. It requires pre-planning for things and not just, oh, I need something.
yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you so much. I think it's what a lovely way to wrap up the conversation with a question. But thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. We've been chatting for 2 hours now, so I think it is time for us now to end. But thank you so much for sharing your time and your knowledge and your insights. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you for taking an interest as a blog. Or Izzy, I can call you Izzy, but
You can call me Izzy.
I just appreciate what you're doing, I just want to say, for everybody.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. It's all curiosity led, things I love to do. Alrighty. Thanks.
Yeah, have a great day.
You too.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.